Welcome. This is News in Depth. Today on the program, we'll be looking at fish farming and the opportunities that exist in this sector. This is against the background of Zambia having a fish deficit estimated at about 85,000 metric tons. However, this scenario is interesting because Zambia is said to have the most water resources in the southern African region. We'll be joining Masasum Kwayaya as he looks at opportunities that exist and measures that are being put in place by the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock to reverse this trend. Welcoming you and encouraging you to stay with us on this week's program, I am Penifa Nyirenda.
Various local and international reports indicate that Zambia holds about 40% of fresh water in southern Africa. Evidently so, Zambia has a lot of water bodies dotted in different parts of the country. And the Ministry of Water Protection also backs these reports.
Statistics vary depending on who carried out the study, but we can still confidently and assuredly say that the Zambezi catchment in the SADC region is the second biggest to the Congo catchment, meaning that we have got a little bit more water. What was lacking behind was what we mentioned earlier, the water resource management. You know, when we have had very good rains, Zambia produces about 160 billion cubic meters of water. That's a lot of water. That is humongous. But the problem was the managing of that water.
Most of these natural resources are beautiful and awe-inspiring sights. A few years ago, these waters hosted millions of fish cutting across different species. Most of these fishes were untamed and freely roamed the waters in abundance. Even though government monitored activities around water bodies, the surveillance levels appeared not to be enough. Because of that, people living around these areas repeatedly engaged in illegal and uncontrolled fishing. The activity of catching fish in natural water bodies is referred to as capture fisheries. In other words, this is the catching of wild fish. And stakeholders have lamented the minimal attention that capture fisheries have been receiving over the years. Royd Mukango is an aquaculturist. Mr. Mukango feels human population growth in these parts has heavily weighed down on the limited surveillance available.
You know, we've had so much pressure on our natural water bodies. Our natural water bodies, they are a limited resource. Now we find that our population has been growing at a very fast rate. With the previous statistics that we find that it's growing over 2% per annum. Now, when you look at that and having a limited resource where our natural fish stocks are, there's an increase in the number of fishermen that are going into the fishing industry, because there's a limited source of employment for the livelihood of rural-based fishermen, so to say. So now, for those people to survive, they've just been engaging into into fishing. There's just an increase in the fishing vessels. And
Michael Harkins is a director at Musekeshe Fisheries, a private fish company that specializes in breeding fingerlings. He too feels the poor control of capture fisheries by the then Fisheries Department, which was under the Ministry of Agriculture, led to the near depletion of fish in most water bodies across the country.
Well, basically, I think it's as a result of our natural water bodies being exploited through capture fisheries, such as Lake Bangwelu, Lake Kariba, and our local rivers like Kafui River. There's a lot of netting going on, uncontrolled netting, and this has resulted in all of our local species being exploited.
According to the Food Agriculture Organization, FAO, a person is expected to consume about 19 kilograms of fish per year. And majority of Zambians are nowhere near reaching this international consumption standard. Zambians consume an average 7 kilograms of fish per year. This is way below the set international average for the consumption of fish. Experts have attributed the low consumption of fish by Zambians to the limited and almost depleted stocks of the living organism in water bodies. The effects of low fish stocks in Zambia are double-edged. Nutritionists credit fish for its high nutritional value, while economists place it as a product capable of contributing to economic growth in the country. The use of inappropriate fishing gear, which can also be referred to as netting, is said to be one of the leading factors behind low fish stocks in the country. And the Young Emerging Farmers Initiative, YEFI, has wondered why a country with vast human and natural resources can have a shortfall of fish.
We have a lot of people, especially young people, that have really come on board to say that they really want to go into agriculture and try to really utilize this sector of agriculture, which is fish farming. But first thing first, we have got the resource, which is the human resource, who happens to be the agripreneurs themselves, the farmers out there. Then we also have the water bodies. And we've got these people who've got the power within themselves, even enough energy even to dig the ponds and do whatever that they can do. Because others can even do the cage fishing, in these natural water bodies. And for your own information, most of the fish has been depleted in these natural water bodies. Even if there is a ban, which started like in December up to March, it's not sustainable to make sure that fish can bleed and grow between that period such that it can even have a water table.
Capture fisheries in Zambia are currently producing about 70,000 metric tons of fish, compared to over 150,000 tons about 2 decades ago. Experts say the reduction is partly due to poor funding in the fish sector. They say the agriculture fountain in Zambia has over the years arguably poured more resources on the maize subsector than any other. Previous administrations have not paid attention to the fish sector. And the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries was magnanimous enough to admit this fact.
So to begin with, as you have rightly pointed out, we've got plenty of water, and we should be actually exporting fish ourselves. But nevertheless, I think we haven't invested enough in aquaculture development. And also we have not invested enough in the sensitization of our fish farmers in water bodies, obvious water bodies which we normally use.
Dr. Shamulenge, however, says the creation of a ministry responsible for fisheries is a sign of government's commitment to addressing challenges in the fish sector. He says government has drawn up several interventions to salvage the situation. And one of the efforts is the restocking of water bodies with fingerlings.
The coming of His Excellency, the President, Mr. Chagwangu, we saw the establishment of the Ministry of Fisheries and Livestock. So which means automatically the priorities changed. Moving away from the agriculture and livestock to fisheries and livestock, priorities changed. And there is a scaled up and political will from His Excellency, the President, in fish farming. And we expect now that will be this scaled up intervention in fish farming is targeting at the reduction of the 100,000+ metric tons.
So we are
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Water Development, Ed Chomba, says his ministry is also coming on board in addressing challenges in the fish sector. He has reviewed that multi-purpose dams, which will also allow for cage fish farming, will be constructed across the country.
Once we do the multi-purpose dams, we are not only talking about irrigation. We'll talk about also, water supply and sanitation. We'll talk about, environment, but we'll also talk about cage fish farming, whereby we construct these dams and we put very big, cages, and we put in, fingerlings, if you like, there.
Meanwhile, aquaculturist Royd Mukango has urged the Ministry of Fisheries to adopt the use of technology such as drones in the surveillance of water bodies.
Most government officers, they don't have fuel. So you'll be there with the fishing, the vessel that you are there patrolling the lake, and they would not say they can't reach here. They will start fishing there. You reach there, immediately you reach halfway, the fuel finishes, and you fail to reach there. So if the government can come up with measures where they have more officers, more funding to this sector, and then modernizing the sector such that there is a proper way of monitoring. It's like our friends, there's our guys. They have the drones that are going to be introduced to be monitoring the safety of animals. Now, even in our fish, they can be, even not necessarily the drones, but just spearheading on the enforcement measures, and also having more officers and equipped with the latest technology that they can even manage to counteract with the technology that fishermen have out there.
Despite challenges in staffing levels, the Ministry of Fisheries is on record of invading and destroying illegal fishing camps. It is camps such as this one in Shivuyunji district that have been partly responsible for the near depletion of fish in the country's water bodies. Recently, it was also discovered that these camps were a breeding ground for diseases such as cholera. Notwithstanding challenges in the capture fisheries, those with business minds have seen a nest of opportunities in the fish sector. Fisho Mwale is co-founder and director of Yalelo Fisheries, a Zambian-grown private company growing fish using pond culture and cage fish farming. Mr. Mwale says aquaculture provides an incremental factor of increasing fish production in a short period.
For many years, we've been engaged in capture fisheries, or basically subsistence farming. So the vast majority of those engaged in the fish chain are villagers, subsistence farmers, small-scale fishermen, and so on, etc. It's only recently that we have got into aquaculture. Now, aquaculture, I think, provides us with a momentum, with an incremental factor in terms of increasing our fish production within a very short period of time. However, we must still be grateful because the subsistence farmers still provide a bulk of the fish production in Zambia.
Mr. Mkango also shares Mr. Mwale's sentiments.
So we find that most of the fish that we have now is coming from these farms. You can talk of aquaculture when you look at the contribution it has done. Look at Yarelo. Yarelo is a company that is barely almost 7 years on the market. They started somewhere 2012, that's when they started doing their business. But today, they are the largest Zambian company, producing a lot of fish on a daily basis on the market. Talk of Lake Harvest, they've also come in. Talk of Impende Fisheries, they are producing more tons and tons, over 100 of tons per day to the Zambian market. Now, when you look at this, just imagine a situation where there was no Lake Harvest, there was no Mpende, there was no Yarelo, and there was no also this distributor capital fisheries. Where would you be buying fish? Would you have been eating fish today? It would have been very difficult. It would have been scrambled for you to have fish.
And Dr. Shamulenge has indicated that government is already registering positive results owing to aquaculture, which is largely being driven by the private sector.
We should be meeting also the deficit because already in the past 5 or so years, 7 years, we've moved actually from 2010, we've moved from about 12,000 metric tons to 28,000 metric tons through aquaculture only. So you can see if we strengthen the aquaculture development, we'll meet the target. Because every individual will be involved in this farming.
The Permanent Secretary says government support to players in the sector will also be in monetary form. He says about $50 million has been acquired from the African Development Bank, ADB.
We want this project, which is 90% private driven, to have an impact on the farmers, so that it can, the farmers should feel that they are doing farming freely. You remember there was a time when we had deficit in poultry, sometime back in the 90s, when Zambians just started keeping chickens. You remember that time? That's how the president wants to look at fish farming. Every Zambian, including you, must also should have a farm, a fish pond behind. If it will be maybe even a small cage where you can put fish, That's what we want. By so doing, everyone will participate. There will be small ones, medium, and large scale.
And stakeholders have called on the ministry to ensure that the money is disbursed to farmers in a transparent manner, devoid of bureaucracy.
We need this money to move to the people. It should not be like the banks. This is the government that's trying to help the farmers who have interest. So even the people that are handling these services should be very, very friendly, and it should not make it very difficult when someone has all the documentation that he should present.
When you look at the conditions, it's a non-starter. You find somebody just want to get a simple loan, but you start asking all those procedures of trying to really provide a collateral, try to do all these other procedures. You know, all those things, technical things that really needs to be done. I think there's the best channel of trying to really disperse this money rather than the way we are really doing it.
Meanwhile, the ministry has said that it will only work with institutions that are willing to come down to its terms, meant to empower people regardless of their standing in society.
We are moving away from collateral issues. If you know, I think countrywide, even Honorable Mtata, the former minister's advised at that time, that we should be working with banks that are pro-farming and pro-poor.
About $26 million of the $50 million loan that government has secured from the Africa Development Bank will be given to the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission, CEEC. The commission will administer the money on behalf of government to young people and women interested in aquaculture development. However, an aquaculturist, Mr. Mkango, feels the commission is not the best institution to manage these funds.
CEEC, to me, they have proved not to be farmer friendly, because the other year they were given some loans to give to the farmers, fish farmers in some areas cassava, but only in our sector. When you visit these CEC offices, they just give you a different look, and they think maybe you are going to ask for money from their own pocket, but it's government money. So I think government, if they want these projects to work, even the people they entrusted to disburse these funds, they should be the right people who have the love for this sector and who have the love for the government agenda.
Nevertheless, it is important to note that CEEC is on record of funding and supporting some fish farmers even before they were entrusted with the responsibility to manage part of the Africa Development Bank Aquaculture Enterprise Development Fund.
At the Commission, the fish value chain, as we call it, is one of the priority value chains of the Commission. And at the moment, we've been supporting so far about 7 districts in the country in the development of aquaculture, the value chain. What that means when you say value chain, it means that we're supporting them right from production, right through up to marketing. So amongst our clients, you're going to find those that are in fish ponds. Typically, they do commercial fish farming at a small level. These are basically, we've got more than 300 farmers that have benefited from our loans for that. We also have those that we're supporting by way of fish cages. Basically, they make cages. Usually, this is where you've got lakes. Like, for example, we've got about 22 beneficiaries in Siavonga. We also have beneficiaries in places like Lake Mweru. And the program so far has been going quite well. All in all, I think the total number of farmers that we're supporting at the moment at the Commission is about like 320 farmers. This has led to the creation of close to 1,000 jobs because each farm normally employs about 2, 3, even 4 people.
Michael Mashimikiro is a young fish farmer based in Osaka's Kabanana area. Michael manages a family pond culture project. Michael, who is also a student at Cavendish University, has advised young people to consider fish farming as a source of employment.
Do not look just for white-collar jobs. I think it's high time young people took this as an opportunity to venture into this business, because it's a very good business. So I would urge all the young people out there to just have that passion, that interest to start this business, and to get out of that mentality of thinking, Boma Ilanganilepo, the government must do something about their unemployment. I think it's high time youths took up this challenge, and we prove it to the government, like we can also do something, but we need the government support at the same time.
And the Ministry of Fisheries says it will use part of the ADB money to train about 1,500 young people who are interested in aquaculture development. Dr. Shamulenge, however, says the young people will not be thrown in deep waters. He says after being trained, the candidates will be attached to already established aquaculture companies until a time when they will be able to float on their own in the industry.
For this year, we're training about 250. These youths, they will be trained. Each province will produce youths, they will be trained, and when they are trained, they will be attached to these big players, so that when they graduate, they are given small loans, soft loans, and then they start fish farming. And you can see that the directives were very clear. The president wants to empower the women and the youths. So in the advert, we are looking at 25 years, between 25 years and 45 years, that age group. 40% should be women and the youths.
But the Aquaculture Development Association feels the ministry should make use of the already existing small-scale fish farmers.
So what do we need to do? I think we need to take advantage of the already existing sector which is involved in this production chain, meaning the subsistence farmers, the small-scale farmers. We need to put resources and infrastructure, and we need to put training facilities so that we can upscale the production of those many small-scale farmers and crystallize that production to huge tonnages.
On the other hand, even though fish farming has so far proved as an alternative to meeting the fish deficit, the emerging sector is facing some serious challenges. Players in the sector have bemoaned the poor quality of fingerlings on the market.
A number of people are producing these fingerlings. You find when you take them in the boat, there is an inbreed. And the moment you start experiencing an inbreed, then it becomes a problem, meaning your fish can't go anywhere. And you find certain fishes are sex reversed.
So the same way the government has done with the feed industry, I think we should move in the same way to make sure that we have security measures in terms of monitoring these suppliers of fingerlings.
And Michael knows too well the importance of stocking fish that is sex reversed.
It's very important to get fish that is sex reversed because, for instance, this pond can only accommodate 1,500 fish. So you have a problem with space when the fish reproduce. So that's why it's very important to get sex reversed fingerlings.
Sex reversing is the scientific reversal of sex in a fish from its original birth sex to another sex. In essence, this procedure can change a female fish into a male. Players who grow fish for consumption prefer stocking their ponds with male fish. Scientists say male fish grow significantly faster than females, as the latter turns most of their energy to the production of eggs and fry. Fish sex reversal can be done through the use of artificial male hormones, also known as androgens, which are fed to the fry for a fixed period of time. The hormones can either be mixed with fish feed or can be dissolved in water. Now, Musekeshe Fisheries, a privately owned fingerlings hatchery located in Lusaka's Lilai area, is carrying out research on sex reversing.
So over here we have about 3,400 fingerlings, which we've kept back from our batches that we've produced. The purpose of this is to grow them to a stage where they become sexually mature, and we'll be able to identify whether they are female or male. In doing so, this will then help us calculate the percentage of sex reversed fingerlings that we've achieved within our hatchery here. If we can hopefully achieve 100%, it'll be the first time it's ever been recorded in Zambia. 100% meaning 100% male.
And Dr. Shamulenge says his ministry will pump some money in research activities meant to enhance the quality of fingerlings on the market.
In the project, what we are calling aquaculture project, this project will also have a look at the area of fingerling production and improvement. We'll get about 4.05 million kwacha for fingerling. plus. So we use that money for production of fingerling. And also we've also got money to set aside to come up with standards for the fingerlings that are going to be produced.
Novatech, a Zambia subsidiary dealing in animal feed, is one of the players that has emerged on the market to respond to the rising need of fish feed in aquaculture.
Currently, we are producing 72 tons of fish feed per day. And we have a plant here in Lusaka, which has that capacity. And then we also have another plant in Mpongwe, which will also yet start producing fish feed. As Zambif, we have macros across the country, and we are still building more macros across the country. So how these macros operate is like a one-stop shop for farmers. So these macros are fully stocked with all of our product range, which is of feed.
The Ministry of Fisheries has noted with excitement the contribution that aquaculture is making to meeting the fish deficit in the country. Records at the ministry indicate that production of fish owing to fish farming has increased from 12,000 metric tons 5 years ago to over 28,000 metric tons recorded about 2 years ago. Fish farming is no doubt providing a nest that will hold aquapreneurs who will work to produce fish to satisfy the market. However, if the country is to be fished out of the fish deficit, players in the sector will need to work together.
This is where we wrap up this week's presentation of News in Depth, where Masasum Kwaya has been looking at opportunities that exist in the fish farming sector against the background of Zambia having a fish deficit. We do hope that the program was informative. Next week on News in Depth, we switch to health, where Efim Pande will be looking at hearing impairment. Do make a date with us for that particular program. Well, here's where we say bye. My name is Penny Fanyerenda. Stay blessed.